Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
What am I supposed to do for money?
You don't want me, man.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Fat Man.
Schools would love you and teach you to love yourself and know yourself.
Hey, all right. So this is the third one, and this one might be a little dramatic. I don't want to say dramatic, but this one might not be as happy. I've tried to re-record this episode a couple times because I don't want it to sound really sad. I don't want people to feel, bad for me when I talk about this story. But I feel like it's something that I do want to express. Lately, I've been kind of in this I'm so proud to be black moment. And so this story or this time in my life really, really reflects that and maybe can show you why right now I am just so elated to be African American or to be black or to be a part of this culture. I don't know. This is where I'm at. And so I keep re-recording it and I'm just saying, F it. I'm going to go ahead and just put it out there and talk about it. And if it sounds sad, it sounds sad. And hopefully it doesn't sound sad. I'll try to make it funny, but it probably won't be. So the topic for today is that moment you found out you were black, right? I think every black person has that moment where you realize man, I'm a nigga. And so that's the topic that I want to kind of express is that moment for me when I found out that I was black and what being black in America meant. It's not that great sometimes when you hear about it. You think oh, I'm going to love my culture, I'm going to love my skin. But I wasn't always there. I had a tough road getting to accepting that I was an African American or I was black, and to beginning to love that feature about me, to love my skin. And so, all right, so I had talked about, the first one I introduced myself, I grew up in North Carolina for my childhood, but I was actually born in Lansing, Michigan. Lansing was a great place. I never felt safer than living in Lansing. And this story is about me at a really, really young age. So I left Lansing when I think I was 6 already. If I hadn't turned 6, I was about to turn 6 because I did first grade. Yeah, I did first grade in North Carolina. So I was at least about to turn 6. I know I wasn't 5. And so I did. I love Lansing. In Lansing, I had a huge family, and not just family like relatives. Even outside of that, a huge church family. I felt like everywhere I went, I was known. My family was the type to get together every day, and we would go to my grandparents' house, my papa's house, and my Aunt Janie would show up, my Aunt Jen would show up, my Aunt Willie Jean would stop by, my Aunt May would get there, and all my family, my cousins would all show up, and this was an everyday thing for me. And so that's what I was used to growing up. And when I wasn't with them, my granny would pick me up, and she'd take me, I'd be with my Aunt Alma, and then my Uncle Manuel would show up, and I'd be with my cousins on that side. So I was never alone. I never felt like I didn't have anybody. I was always safe and protected. And then, dun, 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 I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I want to make this note, though, that although I lived in Charlotte, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about didn't happen in Mecklenburg County. It happened in Cabarrus County, or a different county. But Charlotte was rough, man. Charlotte was really rough. And it was the first time I ever felt like I was alone. I didn't have anybody. I was 6. And so, my mother didn't have a lot of money. She was young with a child. I don't know how old she was, 25 maybe. And she had transferred her job out there. Great city. The city was awesome. I had a neighbor, my best friend at the time, his name was Diego. He lived next door. And I remember him the first day that I got there. He was outside waiting for me. And I remember being scared. I remember being frightened of this state. And not knowing what was going to happen. I just remember that I wanted to be with my family. That's all I can really remember at that age, is that although I lived in North Carolina and my mother was there, it was terrifying that my papa wasn't going to be there tomorrow. And when was I going back to be with him? And that's the only feeling that I can really remember having when I first got there. So I went to a daycare center that was not in Charlotte. I don't think it was, because I remember it was a tribe.